Hey folks, the data is in, the new meta is here, and we're going to talk about the best decks to climb.
Hey buddy, watch this.
That's right, in this video I'm going to take a look at 6 decks, not just the 6 best decks, but those across various archetypes and styles of play to give you a handful of options here to climb in this new Doom in the Tomb meta. Up first is our top win rate deck according to HS Replay's statistics across all regions and ranks. This is Secret Highlander Paladin. So Highlander Paladin was a deck that was sort of a fringe, off the radar deck a little bit previously prior to the Doom in the Tomb patch with the return of the wild cards. Good enough to rank up. Certainly we played it some ourselves, but it turns out adding in this Secret Paladin package, which has some really high power level cards, is really good. So Mysterious Challenger is component number 1. You've got an awesome secret coming back in Avenge. You've also just got really powerful cards that were hard to play otherwise, like Mysterious Blade, Sunreaver Spy. All of this gives you really fast starts, and Mysterious Challenger is just such a big, heavy-hitting way to thin out your deck in a scenario where you're running a lot of 1-drops, along with things like Crystology. You can actually move through your deck pretty darn quickly. And then you can also just find the heavy hitters, the big winning cards in this deck. Things like Sir Finley of the Sands can be amazing. Zephrys the Great, fantastic. Sylvanas, insanely strong. Ragnaros, Tyrion Forge. So there's some really good stuff. As long as you draw 1 or 2 of those, you start the game out so fast. You follow it up with some home runs in those key legendaries, and it just tends to overwhelm opponents and win games. So Secret Paladin list, but with a Highlander tilt, and it turns out it's working really, really well right now. So next up here, let's talk about a fast climb deck. If you don't have a ton of hours to grind away on the ladder, you just want to play something that's super quick, aggressive, and wins games very quickly, this is a great option. It comes in at right around 6 minutes per game, which is very, very low. In Hearthstone also utilizes some of the new awesome stuff from the Doom in the Tomb, namely Evolve, because this is an Evolve Shaman, and as I've been saying for a while in Wild format, Evolve plus Desert Hare is OP, and now that we can do it in Standard, it's super OP because Standard has a lower power level in general. When combined with Mogu Fleshshaper, Sea Giant, Wideboard support cards like Voltaic Burst and Murmy and Thunderhead, you can do some pretty bonkers stuff with this deck, building really wide boards, turning them into bigger, scarier stuff, and sometimes just killing your opponent with Vicina or Bloodlust follow-ups. So you either win quickly or lose pretty quickly in a lot of cases too if you just can't get off to that crazy powerful start. But that's what makes this deck so good for climbing quickly, and of course it has a great win rate too, so not only a fast climb, but a climb. You will be gaining ranks with this one, and I think this deck, as people learn it and start to really understand it, will probably get even better. I think there's a lot of raw power level in this one, so a great option right now for people low on time. Next up here, let's head the other direction for a control deck. If you're somebody who loves control matchups, really grinding stuff out, exhausting your opponent, pulling off some ridiculous late game plays, this is the sort of deck you're going to absolutely love. This is the highest win rate version of Resurrect Priest right now. There are some quest varieties out there too, but this one can still do some bonkers late game stuff without having to run a lot of extra healing cards. And you'll note the curve on this deck is just obscenely high. It doesn't do almost anything until turn 4 or 5. Very few early game plays, but it can swing the game so hard at turn 4 or 5 with a lot of stabilization tools, removals like Mass Hysteria and Light Bomb, just big kind of healing taunt cards like Ziliax, Karta Defender, and then leveraging those into some really big threats in the late game like Ragnaros, Katrina Muerte, and then your just super late game package like Mass Resurrection, bringing back all those Kartut Defenders and Ziliaxes, and your Plague of Deaths, just universally removing everything, and then finally N'Zoth just to reload again and again and again so that you'll eventually overwhelm your opponents. Now, I will say it's actually a little bit of a misnomer, I think, to call this deck a control deck. It's really almost more like a mid-range late-game deck because it's not really about controlling your opponent so much. You are making a lot of proactive sort of plays, and it's defensively minded and it's late-game oriented, But it's not about like exhaustion or fatiguing them out or just removing all of the threats. It's often about counter pressure, building your own ridiculously resummoned boards that get big and just overwhelm them. So control is a little loosely defined here perhaps, but nonetheless, the late game sort of deck that a lot of people desire and often look for when they talk about playing or being a control player. So a very fitting option nonetheless. So next up here, let's take a look at an OTK deck. If you're somebody who likes to kill your opponents in one big burst, you got an option here with Quest, Malygos Druid, of course, using things like Malygos and Elise the Enlightened and Moonfires to pump out lots and lots of damage, particularly when you augment those with discounts from things like Emperor Thaurissan back. Geppetto Joybuzz is there also to potentially get you some cheap plays, and Flabidnus Floop, of course, can create shenanigans too, copying your Malygos, Elise, etc. Beyond that, you have a control quest package complementing this, of course, lots of defensively minded and health gain oriented cards so that you can get to those late game scenarios where you OTK your opponent, and a card like Kuhn the Forgotten King even added in here as well to give you a big 7/7 that you basically play for free and you gain 10 armor in the process. Sort of perfect for a deck that's looking to stay alive in the late game. So you can do even more with this deck than you could before. It was already pretty viable, and now the options just go bonkers with even extra discounts and more late game tools, making this a deck that's now better than OTK Paladin currently, according to the stats. When previously on this list it would have been Holy Wrath Paladin taking the top OTK spot. Now Quest Malygos Druid has supplanted it as the top OTK option. So next up here, let's take a look at a sleeper deck, a deck that's not getting a lot of spotlight among the community, not a high popularity or played rate, but nonetheless can certainly win games. It's capable and unique and does something fun, and Deathrattle Rogue is exactly that, bringing Ankha the Buried back to life because of cards like Sylvanas and N'Zoth, making Deathrattle Rogue have a really, really powerful late game package. And this one in particular doesn't even run like Kartut Defenders, so it's not really a defensively minded deck at all. And you'll notice a pretty fast start here too with Pharaoh Cats and South Sea Deckhands. So this isn't really like a control deck or a late game bomb deck. This is more of a mid-range deck that just has some really powerful late game finisher sorts of things, making it really fun to play because it's just kind of, you got something cool to do a lot of turns. Ankha can also just help you cheat out those Sylvanas and Mechanical Whelps even faster to make your N'Zoth even bigger, because a lot of these Deathrattles are good even when the initial minion is reduced in stats by Ankha. That's often fine because most of the upside here is in your Deathrattles. You've got support with things like Necreum Vial and Necreum Blade to cheat things out even faster. Just good early game tempo. You got some damage and removal mixed in there. It does a little bit of everything like a true mid-range deck should, and I think that's why it's winning. It's not leaning too hard into the Deathrattle stuff. It's not leaning too defensively, which Rogue has always struggled with. It's just playing a bit like a Rogue with some really powerful cards tossed in there late in the game, and that's what works for this class, so that's why this deck is winning some games. Now, to be fair, not going to be the highest win rate deck on this video, maybe even the lowest win rate deck in this video, but nonetheless, something that's capable of climbing and a little bit different, very unique, and super duper fun to play. And then finally here we have our budget deck option right now. It is Murloc Shaman, a latest iteration that's very cheap, coming in just over 2,000 dust or so, but maintaining a really, really high win rate across all ranks. This has gotten left in the kind of battle cry and now evolved Shaman wake, but it's still a really good deck, and it can often catch people off guard too if they're not ready for the raw pressure that this deck can maintain, because this deck goes very, very fast, very consistently, has tons of damage output with Murloc Warleader and Bloodlust, and can just overwhelm people before they even know what's happening. So you can get some really nice surprise wins on a budget. Really only one big card here to craft, which is Murloc Warleader, and that's a card that's, you know, a classic set card, so even committing some of your dust to that's not a big deal because it's going to be around forever and probably be a relevant card for a long time to come. Also just some good Murloc and Shaman cards being crafted here as well, like Mogu Flesh Shaper, which is awesome, and Sledge Slurper, which is amazing. So you're just contributing good stuff for the future of your collection. So a great option to win games fast, and win games very, very affordably. And there you go. Those are my decks to climb right now in the post-Doom in the Tomb era. Hopefully a nice mix there. If you just want to see like the top decks by Winrate, you know, you can go to hsreplay.net. You can go to Vicious Syndicate. I don't think that's helpful for me to just read a list of the best 5 decks, so I want to curate these to help you find a little bit more of a unique angle of approach on some of these. So there are deck lists below in the comments if you want to find some good builds for these. The lists featured in the video are often just the most popular or highest win rate, but of course there are variations across all of these decks for how you build them. You can find one that suits you or matches up to your collection really well. That said, if you enjoy these kinds of videos, I'm going to be putting them out more at the beginning of every month, hopefully, so you can keep an eye on the meta and the right sorts of things to play. If you have suggestions or questions, of course, leave those in the comments below. I'd greatly appreciate you liking and subscribing for more of these sorts of videos too. That always helps me know what you guys enjoyed the most, and you can keep an eye on future versions as well. That said, thanks much for watching, and until next time, game on.